Welcome back, everyone, to the Hearthstone Grandmasters for the Americas. We have our first match coming up, Language Hacker versus Gallon. Both players pretty much locked in for the playoffs, but it's about where they really land and, of course, that extra money. My name is
Yep.
Shorty. I'm joined by Doa, who has transplanted himself as a European Hearthstone Grandmaster caster because they use the green. Are you
Right.
betraying us? Are you leaving us here, Doa?
No, I'm just trying to pull back the curtain on, esports production magic in that for some reason it wasn't taking on my green screen, so we're just going back to like a regular green. So, I'm,
Sure.
filling in for TJ. I'm also your sort of substitute, like maybe EU vibe caster. I don't know what that means. I don't know if I want to know what that means, but here we are. I'm on the green screen, but this is much more interesting. Language Hacker's tech list. Let's take a look at this.
Yeah, so Language Hacker, his lineup, no Warrior. We expect to see a lot of Warrior bans. Warrior's still problematic, even if many people don't necessarily know if Warrior's the best class in the metagame. Its matchup spread is still ridiculously good, given that we do expect Demon Hunter, for example, in a lot of lineups. And it does have a lot of versatility to handle, the Druids, which are surging back in popularity, and even Quest Warlock. I've seen Warriors, if I get a little careless, Warriors were able to out-heal my burst range armor game. So Warrior bans on both sides makes a lot of sense.
Now we take a look at Gallon's decks as well. Of course, Warrior ban, no big surprise there, and that leaves him with Demon Hunter, Quest Warlock, but the Hunter instead of the Druid too. And Highlander Hunter is just a deck that has been around for a long time. But now, a couple little additions with the recent expansion, obviously. The Grand Slam is one that jumps to mind right away, but there's a lot of stuff to use.
And we'll see how Hunter performs. In the meantime, we're going to get things started with Warlock versus Demon Hunter. A matchup that I think we'll be seeing a lot of the weekend. I don't think Warlock warrants the ban, largely because Demon Hunter does have legitimate ways to just win the game. I know that Warlock is fantastic at healing, but it seems like Demon Hunter's pressure tools are really good.
Well, that's the thing, is that it seems like sometimes in this matchup, with the little data we have so far, that a lot of times the Demon Hunter can just simply run the Warlock over, right? If you don't draw your Brood Mothers at the right time, if you don't get, the right amount of, board control, you can just kind of get overwhelmed pretty quickly by the Demon Hunter. And there always is that threat, too, as the game goes on, that the Demon Hunter player is building up that, like, big burst hand, right? Which can take you down from, like, 12 to 15 health sometimes when you're not expecting it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the problem with Warlock in general is that sometimes there is that wrong half of the deck that you don't want to draw.
Exactly, yeah.
But Language Hacker's hand looks good for that. I mean, Questing Explorer and Morag Artificer, these are completely valid things to just play on two to try and get board presence. I think one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen Warlock players do when they play this deck is don't value the turn 2 play a minion. I think they life tap a little bit too aggressive.
I totally agree, especially in a matchup like Demon Hunter, right? Like, sometimes you have to not forget to look at the stats of your minion, right? A lot of times in a deck like this, it is a combo deck, you're looking at the card text, right? But don't forget the stats. A 2/4 can still get a lot of work done versus Demon Hunter in the early game in terms of preventing you from taking some of that early damage, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that early game damage is exactly what Demon Hunter wants to snowball with. With this Coin Sightless Watcher, try and prepare what Gallon's hand wants to do. He's got a Skull of Gul'dan on his outcast position on the far left. That immediately makes me think, how can Gallon start to try and mount some kind of combo finish here? Because he's got Metamorphosis, he's got Skull. What else can he really do to piece it together there?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe look for an Altruist a little bit later in the game or something like that. We'll see.
The actual nuts. Language Hacker, Questing Explorer, gets another Questing Explorer in hand. You can see Language Hacker comes dressed for the occasion, and he already is drawing as well as he looks.
Yeah, seriously, if you're the Quest Warlock right now, you're pretty happy with finding all that stuff. Even though Gallon does kind of like take the tempo back a little bit by having that bigger board, at least you feel like you can survive. You're not going to take an insane amount of damage early.
Yeah, so now that being said, this is an off-curve play here available for Language Hacker, and that's definitely not an easy position to be in, because with the Warlock against Demon Hunter, just in general, if you're playing a defensive deck against Demon Hunter, you really need to make efficient use of all those early game mana crystals.
Right. I guess you kind of got to go for the Questing Explorer, right? Does he find something he casts? No, not really.
Yeah, it's too greedy to, you know, like try and take it really slow and then try to life tap and play the Questing Explorer. In fact, I've seen a lot of times when we're practicing this matchup, not even necessarily life tapping till like, you know, 7 or 8 mana crystals because you're just trying to curve out as best as you can.
Well, it seems like a lot of times you can spend the early game just defending, right? Like Language Hacker's trying to do, because Plot Twist gives you so many of those draws, and then you do have other things like Sense Demon that draws a couple cards, so there's ways to get around like missing a couple life tap turns early on, I suppose. But
true.
Looking at Galen's board, I guess right now what you're probably thinking if you're Galen, right, is how do I put on as much pressure as I can while at the same time not exposing myself to like losing too much from a board clear?
Yeah, Dark Skies is on the immediate forefront of his mind because it's the last turn before the Crazed Netherwing is a potential threat. Also, Galen has to think about his turn 4. Turn 4 has actually nothing substantial to play if he commits his Battle Mage, so he might end up just playing Umberwing and Hero Power instead of playing this Battle Mage right now. But both lines are completely okay. Wow, Galen says I'm just going to load it up.
All right.
And I think this is a correct play because based off the previous turn from Language Hacker, I'm pretty sure that warranted some kind of Dark Skies or like Monarch Artificer clear with Rain of Fire. And Language Hacker has shown that he doesn't have it. So I think Galen says I'm going to go full on extend to the board, invest in my damage now, and chances are I'm going to draw something to play because Tempo Demon Hunter does have a lower.
Right. I don't know how greedy Language Hacker is of a player overall, but you would think that last turn would have drawn out some sort of board clear if he would have had it. Well, there's a draw to go back up to 30 at least. So it does have a lot of healing.
A very good sequence of draws here for Language Hacker again. Monarch Artificer is the demon, so is the Andrasi Broodmother, but of course, if he drew both Broodmothers, not only would he be unable to play it the next turn, that healing would be over. It caps out at 30 here. So Language Hacker, very happy to see specifically those two cards.
Yeah, for sure. So what turn are you thinking about doing a Plot Twist if you're Language Hacker here? Because your hand is starting to fill up right now. You're at 30 health. You know, you probably don't want to do it until you need more health from drawing another Broodmother at some point. But when do you usually see players do the Plot Twist in this?
I think Plot Twist, if Language Hacker doesn't draw any other good card to play, like a Crazed Netherwing or Dark Skies, I can see him playing Monarch Artificer and Plot Twisting the next turn to try to see if he can get Rain of Fire or Mortal Coil. It's just something to stabilize.
Makes sense.
But right now, if you look at Galen's hand, he has nothing to develop on his turn. His IE Beam can only target his own minions. And therefore, Galen, you know, he took a little bit of a gamble, actually a pretty significant gamble. To try and hope that he can draw something. And on average, he would draw something that's playable, but I guess we should have added the caveat of something proactive to play.
Right. You want to do something to build your board a little bit more, right?
Right.
As it is, he can still do a decent amount of damage. That's what, like 7 on board right now if you include the weapon swing. I don't know if that'd do that or if you use your hero power here, but it does feel kind of bad. At the very least, not drawing something that can replace your board after it is wiped, which it will be eventually.
Yeah, I would say a little bit under half his deck. Like I would say like 9 or 10 cards were cards that he probably wouldn't play. Ibean happened to be one of them. Then you have a bunch of expensive cards like War Glaives and Glaive Bound Adepts, and then like Altruist, which I don't think you would have played on Curve either.
Oh,
so,
no way.
you know, that being said, Galen did get, you know, a little bit unlucky, but at the same time, not super surprising because there were a handful of dead draws.
Yeah. What do you think about attacking face here? You use up the rest of your weapon. I guess with the health totals that come out on the Warlock side, you're not going to get that much out of the Umberwing anyway, but there's a Crazed Netherwing off the top for Language Hacker.
Okay.
Wow. All right. I think you'd be pretty happy about that if you're Language Hacker right now.
Yeah. So here's the question. I mean, there's a lot. So first, to answer your question, I think it's important for Galen to push that damage because Glaive Bound Adept isn't in his hand, and even if he did, chances are he probably developed Metamorphosis if he did draw that Glaive Bound Adept. And the following turns, find a way to Glaive Bound Adept. But the follow-up to this question is, you know, is Warglaives of Azzinoth, should that be going just face, or should we address this 5/5? Because that 5/5 dealt 10 damage to Galen.
Right.
And now the problems are going to continue to increase.
I mean, 7/7 taunt out of that Abyssal Summoner and another Warglaves for Gallon. Like, what do you do here, man? Everything just feels bad. Like, you can Metamorphosis hero power, swing with the weapon to clear the 7/7, but that feels terrible, right? So,
yeah.
would you just skull here?
I think I see two lines. One line is exactly what you said, Metamorphosis clear. The other is Metamorphosis go face and hope that you draw the glaive out of it next turn.
Yeah, honestly, maybe that's the case. Maybe it's time to just go all in, but you're looking at minimum 9 damage coming in from the other side, though, next turn, so...
The thing that also is a potential is what you said, Skull of Gul'dan. You might be able to pick up like Altruist, and then next turn, if you have Metamorphosis, you can also squeeze in I-beams and whatnot.
Right.
So I think Gallon's going to try, and he also can hit Frozen Shadow Weaver. Oh, he does!
Oh,
that's huge.
Wow. All right, yeah, that's going to save him a lot of life at least.
Yeah. And the nice thing about cards like Frozen Shadow Weaver is that it makes cards like Dark Skies worse. Language,
yeah, absolutely.
Because his minions, of course, will stay on the board. However, Gallon's problems don't go away. This is just more of a temporary stall turn.
Right, but it's a big temporary stall turn, I suppose. When you're looking at your opponent with 14 health, there's another breath, though. So a little bit of healing found for Language Hacker.
Wow, Language Hacker, very close to lethal.
Yeah, actually is, isn't he?
Yeah, but the Morag Artificer here can instead just simply be used to heal for basically full health.
Yeah, pretty much. Another breath gets doubled about 1 billion times, 16 health for Language Hacker.
Cool story.
Yep, that's a fun play. Yeah, fun for Language Hacker anyway. And now Gallon, you're still looking at that 7/7 taunt. There's no, like, clear, like, even way to sort of get rid of this. Doesn't seem like there's a lot of efficient plays in Gallon's hand right now.
Well, Metamorphosis will discount I-Beam to 1. So we can play Metamorphosis, hero power the 7/7, then I-Beam, and to just kind of live with whatever consequences comes after that from having all these minions on the board.
Right.
That might be Gallon's best chance here. Try and turn things around. Unfortunately, he's just a little bit off from doing everything he wants because the Metamorphosis doesn't allow him to hero power and use, the Workers of Azzinoth really efficiently. And look at this.
Whoa. Okay, so yeah, he gets the discount on I-Beam by getting it to the right side of his hand. 12 damage done. I mean, that's the thing. Morag Artificers buff all the spell damage done to minions, so...
Yeah.
It is just like anything in Warlock. It is a double-edged sword sometimes. It does provide the clear.
Right. And so this is a really good situation spotted by Gallon here to use I-Beam to clear. I was just thinking Metamorphosis because you get the 5 mana out of the way and the I-Beam's able to just dunk it. But yeah this is brutal. The follow-up Acidic Swamp Ooze, and now Gallon has lost complete control of the board. Without Warglaves of Azzinoth, he can't utilize his health anymore. And that was his second Warglaves.
Yeah, it just gives that one up. Not too surprising there. I mean, maybe you're hoping for like another skull off the top to try to stay alive, but that's going to be Language Hacker taking game number 1 and pretty much being in control of it, I would say, the majority of the game.
Yeah, I would say that, Language Hacker did a very good job understanding that what's important is developing tempo onto the board. You beat tempo decks often with just better tempo, and he was using decisive swings like the Crazed Netherwing and having that Morag Artificer for the ability to swing that board and, of course, gain a bunch of health. So more tempo end up favoring Language Hacker. And another thing, too, did you count how many times Language Hacker life tapped in that game?
Maybe like 1 or 2, barely any at all, actually. He played that like a straight-up control deck.
I think it was legitimately 0 times.
Yeah, I mean, that was Quest Warlock played just like Control Warlock, essentially,
Right. And what's funny is that Control Warlock always would try to tap, right? Or even just like any kind of Warlock that wasn't... Just every Warlock, period. Zoo Warlock, Handlock, all these different variations of Warlock in the past always wanted to life tap, but in this case, we didn't see a single time. This is a different matchup. We might see, or we should see, Warlock tap a lot more, but something to keep in mind about why people like this deck right now, in terms of being fun to pilot, is that the play patterns change.
Yeah, that's the one thing that really struck me when I was playing a bunch of games with Quest Warlock over the last few days was that you really do have a different game each time. It's not like other combo decks like Miracle Rogue in the past where you're just basically playing solitaire, right? Like this deck, you have to be very reactive to the deck you're playing against, to what your opponent is doing with that deck. And the cool thing about Quest Warlock is that it gives you a bunch of different lines of play to think about that. But that's a pretty amazing start for Language Hacker, actually. Fungal Fortunes right off the bat like that.
Oh,
no! No! Exotic
Yikes.
Mountain Vendor.
Well played.
Or Mount Seller. Is it Mountain Vendor or Mount Seller? I always forget.
It's Mount Seller, but
Mount Seller. Okay. I've been playing regular WoW lately, so I'm thinking about Mountain Vendors.
Retail WoW or classic?
I play live, man. I mean, I appreciate classic, but live is where it's at, in my opinion. And I even played vanilla back when vanilla was new too, man.
That's right. A true journeyman.
I have those rose-colored glasses still on, man. I remember BC, Lich King, Classic, and all that when it was new. But no, I like live. My friends are playing live, so I play live.
So this is actually a really curious turn, and I wanted to actually talk about this turn in particular. It was that Galen had the opportunity to life tap and plot twist, or he had the opportunity to sense demons. And I think that there was a little bit of merit to both, but Sense Demons is a little bit of a clunkier card, and I think once more, this is a thing that I see a lot of players just say, you know what, I have Plot Twist on 4, it's a slower matchup, instantly rip it.
Sure.
But the Sense Demons does effectively that same thing, but you get the Plot Twist for 1 card deeper, so I really appreciate that play here.
Yeah, it's like net more progress towards your quest in the end, I suppose. And you can have games with this deck where you finish your quest on like turn 6. It can be really quick.
It's
almost certainly going to be this time.
Yeah. Right. So from Language Hacker's perspective, he's gathering resources. The second Mount Seller has gotten to the hand. Language Hacker has the opportunity to drop the Ysera Unleashed and really make the follow-up board super threatening. And it is difficult for Warlock to deal with the Ysera unless they have Keladon in the hand, which does not know is in the hand of Galen.
Exactly. You aren't getting the full value from Keldon, but I think if you're, taking out a 4/12, you're still feeling pretty good about this. But Language Hacker is going to play it a little bit differently. Goes for the Mount Seller first. See what he gets. We've seen a lot of King Mukla lately out of Mount Seller, which amuses me.
Yeah, the beasts that come out of this are going to be really impactful for Language Hacker against cards like Dark Skies, but not against Crazed Netherwing if they end up becoming really small. I think if I'm Language Hacker, I'd probably entertain the idea of drawing a card, but looks like he's just going to summon and say, if you got Netherwing, you got it.
Well, guess what? He's got it. You don't kill the Mount Seller, though. So, is there a situation where you're like, I'm at 29 health. I know this deck can heal a lot. Do you kill down the Mount Seller?
Let's see. Savage Roar would be 10 on board plus the 12 plus 1, so 23.
That is a concern.
The problem would be that this kind of Druid deck also has Power of the Wild and another Savage Roar, so
yeah,
I do like some kind of AoE clear here. Rain of Fire is also completely fine, so that way he can even Soulfire the Mount Seller, so it ends up being even cleaner. I like that.
Wow. All right. Yeah. Abyssal Summoner gets lost. That doesn't feel great, but it's not the end of the world. When you look at Galen's hand, I think you're probably pretty happy that's the one that got popped out of it.
Yeah, it stings to lose the Abyssal Summoner. It's surprisingly like one of the most impactful cards in the mid game for Warlock. I think I wasn't really expecting much when I was first kind of playing this deck, but it ends up being like an MVP a lot of the time.
So he's got a chance to kill the Ysera here. Keldon. What else do you go for? Things like the Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. Zephyr's not active yet.
So many possibilities.
Doesn't really have a lot of hand cycle. Do you just hero power first? See what you get?
The thing is, if you don't kill this Ysera, she's just gonna stay on the board for a while.
That's the thing, yeah. He's 1 mana away from little bit easier to play. You have to kill it, right?
So
Well,
many
it's also the
possibilities.
like if you hero power, and let's say you get another really cheap card that's not playable. Oh, wow. Okay.
That's a rough one.
Well, I mean,
'Cause
it's a great card to have, right?
It's a great card to have, but it doesn't really answer the problem that you're running into right now. Although, at the end of the day, it's only 4 damage. It's not like she's going to put more in
correct
your
to
deck.
actually play it right.
I wonder.
You wonder? You think so?
Yeah, I wonder. Gallon's gonna hold off, but he gave it a little bit of thought, and I understand that holding on to it is fantastic, right? Because if they have Glowfly Swarm
Right.
and Soul of the Forest, you can just answer Twisting Nether and create Nether Wing.
Exactly, yeah.
Part of me is just looking at the density of Gallon's hand and just thinking about like how he's gonna get a chance to play all this. It gets Druid that's gonna be threatening wide boards. So I was entertaining the idea of Twisting Nether and then playing Crazed Netherwing for tempo, but that's just all your AoE,
Wow.
and your opponent goes wide on the board, and then you just probably die.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's really aggressive. I thought I was a more aggressive player, but man, that's a crazy aggro line you just described there.
Well, you don't
Now-
need to do it.
Yeah, very true. Second Crazed Netherwing at a very good time, I would say, because it still lets him preserve that full Soul of the Forest board clear that we talked about a moment ago.
Right, and having that Crazed Netherwing, Gallon does have
Ooh.
the luxury of taking it even slower.
Mm-hmm.
Up
Yeah,
Immortal
just-
Coil.
Has to get rid of a card in his hand. Might as well. Well, we know it's not going to be a Mount Seller, at least this time. Finds a Dream Portal too, obviously, which is one of the nice things about that. All right, that's an 8/8. We'll take it.
Yeah,
We take
Burzon's
those.
very sturdy. We just need really sturdy dragons, and that's ultimately why holding on to Twisting Nether makes sense to me too. Wow,
Another Ysera. This one is useful on the board. All right, Twilight Drake. Not as inspiring, but it is something.
Yeah.
Soul of Forest right here, I guess, huh? Or maybe not. He was thinking about it. It's Do you really Soul the Forest when you only have 4 minions out? I guess now he's got to be worried about
Sometimes.
Twisting Nether, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, Twisting Nether isn't nearly as big of a problem because he has Savage Roar. He has actually 2 Savage Roars.
Sure.
So this is actually a very good halfway play here for lnguagehackr. He still has enough spells with Glowfly Swarm and Soul of the Forest to follow up.
Yeah.
So if Gallon goes for a Twisting Nether, Crazed Netherwing, he can do the same exact thing once more, and he has even more burst through
Oh.
Ysera Awakens.
Wow, that's another 5 damage on top of everything else. What do you do if you're Gallon? How do you eliminate this? I mean, we know he has 1 full board clear, but it's like you just said, he needs to be worried about the second board that gets set up, right? And here's where this deck kind of runs into trouble sometimes, is that when are you going to get to really play your kill combos, you know?
Yeah, so the one thing that Gallon obviously has clears to like Twisting Nether and Dark Skies or
Right.
Crazed Netherwing. I think the reason why I like Dark Skies is because Netherwing is more consistent at dealing with wider boards.
Right.
And also because of the threat of Power of the Wild, they can 3/3s. So I think I like that a little bit better. But to answer
lnguagehackr
your,
looked a bit upset about that.
yeah, but to answer your question from previous, oh my god, to answer your question
Wow.
previously, it's because you eventually want to slam things for just straight up tempo.
Yeah.
Like if you play this Alex Straza right here, lnguagehackr has used some of his removal, and he doesn't have much of it. So you're threatening a 2-turn here.
Oh yeah, you definitely do that. lnguagehackr giving it a little bit of a clap too, because that's suddenly 13 damage on the board that he's got to worry about how to take care of, and there's not a lot of great ways to do that right now. Like Ysera Awakens kills the Drake, but it doesn't deal with the dragon.
You can get stuff in the way, but
Yeah.
this is looking pretty game over here. lnguagehackr, he can play the Glowfly Storm. He can obviously with his Ysera Awakens first to try and reduce the amount of power on the board. But
Right.
the problem is Ysera Awakens damages himself.
That too,
And
yeah.
then if lnguagehackr plays a taunt and Gallon can just get past it, he's just going to push damage for them.
What to do?
So This is a tough spot for Language Hacker. It's very likely he doesn't get out of this one. There are some Hail Mary opportunities if he's willing to dig with Rising Winds to get his other Dragon portals.
Mm-hmm.
But not really sure.
Oh, he's going for it with the Ysera Awakens. Takes 5, but he does eliminate the 5/5 on the other side. Will fly Swarm and gonna innervate out Soul of the Forest, looks like, probably.
It's his best shot.
Yep. Going for the win.
Doesn't have lethal unless his Zephyrus is active. If Zephyrus is active, he very much has lethal.
Oh, yeah. Broodmother for a little bit of healing, but not enough to get you out of range of dying to the Druid.
Okay, so a tap into like any kind of damage source would be lethal.
Right.
Well, not every damage source, not Rain of Fire, but a Nether Breath, for example, or Soulfire would also.
Exactly, yeah. You think tap has to be the first play here. Because like you said, Zephyrus not active, Dragon Queen Alexstrasza not active. Obviously, Keldan wasn't drawn this turn, so he's not going to clear the board. Yep, there's a tap. Finds a plot twist. Okay, this is usable.
That's huge, because now he can Keladon plot twist for 8 or 7 more cards, rather.
Yeah, this is something. He's got a really good chance of drawing lethal here.
Language Hacker's like,
oh, there it is.
Breath should wrap it up. Assuming he has a dragon in hand. Oh, no, it was 2 damage regardless.
That's true. Yeah, it should just be lethal anyway. There we go. And so we're all tied up. Galen managing to take the winning game 2 with the Quest Warlock.
Yeah, and we've seen that matchup be on a knife's edge there because despite all of that, a 0-mana Twisting Nether plus 2 Crazed Nether Wings plus both Dark Skies as options. And yet, despite that, Druid was in a position where, like, Galen had to get kind of lucky. You know, the chances are he was going to have lethal.
Right.
But, you know, he still had to avoid any kind of unlucky scenario in order to win that game because Druid still had a chance. So you can see why Druid's still very much a threat, despite the fact that it lost that game.
Yeah, for sure. And just because you have a high chance of winning doesn't mean it's 100% chance. You're still a little bit concerned if you're Galen in that case. But I think that game was like a good case for both decks, right? Where it was competitive. Nobody really got ran over in that game. And it was really only the last couple turns that kind of determined it. But we're jumping right in to game number 3. It's going to be a Demon Hunter Mirror, it looks like.
Yeah, Demon Hunter Mirrors, be explosive.
Yeah.
Be very fast and over, or it can kind of drag out, or it can just be a complete snowball victory. And
they aren't running identical decks. I believe Language Hacker is running a mana burn in his list. Look at him right now.
Yeah, the flex spot seems to be whether or not we should be including cards like Volpera Scoundrel.
Right.
A lot of people's decks. Volpera Scoundrel seems to have gotten much more popular in Demon Hunter deck lists, largely because Demon Hunter is a newly released class, and a lot of their spells are high impact because, you know, well, Team 5 felt like they needed to have higher power level to catch up with the rest of the classes.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so then Volpera Scoundrel discovers on average a higher power level card in Demon Hunter than it does in Shaman Warrior.
True enough. Turn 1 Battle Fiend for Language Hacker. He's trying to get that early board presence, early threat going. And Galen, a little bit of an uninspiring hand here for him. You can Twin Slice to clear the minion, which it looks like is what he's going to do, but it doesn't feel great, does it?
It's okay. It's surprisingly one of the most impactful things. Like, you might look at your hand with a Twin Slice and think, oh, you know, I don't have anything proactive to develop. I'm not sure if I like this. But
sure.
Twin Slice, for most people in most matchups, is a key for Demon Hunter in a lot of scenarios because it just allows them to squeeze in really efficient tempo plays.
I suppose.
And, you know, Galen does have a curve. He's got coin 3 drop and 3 drop. And Language Hacker's got nothing. So this mana burn, I'm wondering what time we should use it for Language Hacker. If he uses it, Galen doesn't get a turn straight up, unless he wants to coin or something.
Yeah,
which is sketchy.
All right, just going to be the claws for Language Hacker.
Holding for the mana burn also doesn't seem particularly good because he doesn't even have anything on turn 4 to play.
Yeah. Draws the Altruist.
Oh, wow.
That's the card where I'm like, all right, this is what I'm saving Twin Slice for every game, which is probably not the right answer, but it is sort of like Altruist's partner in crime. As far as cards in the deck go, Frozen Shadow Weaver freezes Frozen Shadow Weaver. It is the mirror matchup after all.
Language Hacker, having 3 of the most expensive cards, draws the 4th most expensive card. He's tied for it.
I mentioned Gallon's hand, but man, Language Hacker has got a really, really rough hand. Glavebound Adept. Turn before you can even use it. Even if it is turn 5, you still can't really attack. He's got no weapon. So what do you do out of here? You just sort of try to weather the storm, I suppose.
Yeah, so I think what he's going to do is set up Warglaze of Azzinoth, and then use Glavebound Adept to come back onto the board, giving up 4 mana while your opponent gets developed freely, and Gallon will develop, is really, really hard to come back from. And not to mention, Gallon has the 2nd Frozen Shadow Weaver to go at Language Hacker. Because if you look at what the context clues give, you just saw your opponent pass on 4 mana completely. He also played the Frozen Shadow Weaver off the top of his deck immediately. Therefore, it's safe to conclude that your opponent has a 5 mana play that he's trying to gear up for. And so by freezing the face, you shut down Warglaze of Azzinoth, shut off Twin Slice and Glavebound Adept. And did he just pick up his 2nd Glavebound Adept?
He did. Yeah, he's actually drawing all the most expensive cards he can possibly draw right now. Go buy a lottery ticket because those are odds that you want to apply for something a little bit better than this particular game of Hearthstone.
One more Metamorphosis, and I believe that's a Hearthstone Yahtzee.
I think so. It's like the anti-Yahtzee, you know? It's the Yahtzee, but you lose. Just kind of, it's compounded by the fact that there were 2 Frozen Shadow Weavers in the hand of Gallon. So you can delay, like we were talking about, that Warglaze of Azzinoth turn that much longer. And there's Altruist coming out with the Twin Slice, of course. And he has got like a billion things to use with this. Big damage turn coming out from Gallon now. Yeah, this Altruist doesn't have to deal the killing blow. It just has to kind of create enough pressure that forces Language Hacker to show that he can deal with it. And the thing is, even if this board is dealt with, Gallon has the Metamorphosis. Right. What is it going to be?
Game,
oh, no Yahtzee. Over. It really does. I don't think the Setter Overseer is going to really help that much. And yeah, that's Language Hacker bowing out. Going to be a lead for Gallon. And pretty quick game 3, huh?
Yeah, and perhaps something to consider, right? Mana Burn is pretty useful if you're trying to go up against certain classes that can really get punished by it, or certain archetypes. So one thing I look at, for example, is how does Mana Burn interact with your opponent who has to play a 9-mana Malygos? They can't, unless they have the coin. Or they discounted it, which is unlikely, but, obviously a chance.
It's such a big mirror too, right? Where if your opponent has to play something every turn and you just kind of deny that turn, it's pretty good.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at the replacement for it, Volpara's Scoundrel, that would have given Language Hacker a smoother curve, not by much, but still would have given him a slightly better early game against the Demon Hunters that he's going to go up against. And so that deck building decision, while Language Hacker did get unlucky, it didn't come into play, right? Because if he had Mana Burn, he probably wouldn't have played anything on turn 2, but at least he would have had turn 3 and turn 4 leading up to this.
Yeah. So that brings us to Gallon's last deck that he needs to grab a win with, which is his Highlander Hunter. Language Hacker going to be trying to pilot the Demon Hunter one more time to get back into this thing.
All right, so Highlander Hunter, it's kind of gone through some ups and downs. In the very beginning of Grandmasters, it was crushing everything. It was like, why are more people not bringing this? And people are saying, it's like a high roll deck. You just have to draw and curve out well. And then people started gearing their deck list to be a lot more early curve and try to be more aggressive. And that started working out really well. And now it seems like because the meta has slowed down enough, people are able to start putting in more of that top end a Grand Slam. They can use Boom Pistol Bully and Deckless and feel like they're not just going to get run over by Demon Hunters. So overall, I'm feeling Highlander Hunter. It's definitely a good class right now in the metagame. Although people debate whether or not it's they debate whether or not it's like a tier 1 deck.
Right. I mean, the fact that so many people bring it kind of, in my mind, puts it up there as a tier 1 deck. And despite the fact that it's a Highlander deck, it does seem very consistent. Galen trying to figure out, or rather, Language Hacker trying to figure out which of these cards he's going to grab. Or put back on the top of his deck anyway. A bit of a trade. And so if you're Galen, at this point, okay, yeah, going to the Scale Rider makes sense. You've got the Primordial Explorer in the hand. Trying to swing things back in his favor. So, Language Hacker has a couple different options here. What do you think about the Shadow Weaver? Does that jump out at you as kind of the quote unquote obvious thing?
Yeah, what I'm trying to think about is what Language Hacker sees, which is that Galen kept 3 cards. If you only mulligan 1 card, which became tracking. And so you know of a few cards your opponent wants to keep in certain matchups, one of them being an early game weapon, whether it's Desert Spear or it's Stormhammer.
Yeah.
Galen happens to draw Desert Spear this turn, so it's kind of do a damn to do damage.
Right.
But this is a situation where Language Hacker has to weigh if it's worth playing that Shadow Weaver versus playing it reactively. Another alternative you could do, actually, is just Chaos Strike here. And then see what Galen does and react to that. Because Language Hacker's proactive plays aren't super good right now.
Right. And looks like it might be just one to the face. He's just going to play it a little bit slower, just establishing a little bit of a board with Umberwing and passes it over. Okay.
Yeah, so this sets up for a turn 5 Glavebound deck, because next turn you can attack, and then turn 5 you can attack again. This also actually sets up really well for a Satyr Overseer if he draws it off the top, because then you can play it in Hero Power. And of course, you can still go with this Frozen Shadow Weaver on turn 4, which is ultimately what he really wanted to do. No matter what it is, I like the not play, the hold on the Frozen Shadow Weaver. I think that was correct.
Yeah, just kind of waiting to see what your opponent really has. Desert Spear is a pretty good answer to the 1/1 tokens. Still allows him to get 3 damage to face. Locust
so I wonder if Language Hacker here, especially now that he's picked up this Beaming Sidekick, wants to use this Chaos Strike while he has the opportunity to. Chaos Strike is a pretty solid card, but surprisingly kind of clunky to use because the Tempo Demon Hunters really want to either combo it with the Warglaives of Azzinoth, or they're looking purely to just generate a little bit extra damage and keep up the tempo.
Right. You also want to use it for the card draw too, if you can possibly. So there's like those situations where it's like without that text on the card, it would be an easy, decision to use it, but with it, you kind of second guess yourself a little bit,
Yeah, this also makes a lot of sense to me too. Just the max amount of tempo. Forget trying to combo stuff. Chaos Strike also might just be the best card to have when you establish your Glaive Bound at Depth, because the Glaive Bound at Depth, if it sticks onto the board, you can use Chaos Strike to get past any taunts if they pop up, then push for damage.
Very true. Galen mulling over his options. He's got a couple. Normally, you'd want to just curve out that evasive Fellwing on a turn 4, but with the board he's looking at right now, it's definitely a lot less appealing. It's just not going to last. Yeah, I guess you're tracking and look for something here. Oh man, those are a lot of cards you don't really want to have to give up. But you can only play the Animal Companion. He's going to keep the Faceless Corruptor just because, again, that's going to give him a little bit more mileage, possibly turning one of those 1/1 charge tokens into something. Alexstrasza. All right.
Excuse me, sorry. Yeah, the Alexstrasza isn't really going to be super important. Yet another interesting opportunity here for Galen to really get ahead of his opponent.
Yeah, it's actually a great draw, honestly. It's going to pair well with some of the later game stuff if he finds Dino Tamer Bran, right? That can set up some pretty scary scenarios for Language Hacker.
Yeah, or even if like what it could be using for is just heal, right? If Language Hacker is going to go for a Metamorphosis setup, set like down to 8 health or so, then that's when Alex Strauss can go back and heal him. So it's a good, flexible. It sounds weird given that 9 mana cost, but flexible card to help him play offensive or defensively.
Well, I guess if you're Gallon, you kind of just want the game to go as long as it can, right? Because the longer the game goes, the more the Hunter is going to have the advantage. Demon Hunter's just going to run out of cards. They're going to run out of steam, Syamat. Like, Gallon is so close to stabilizing, I feel like. But he's going to be able to do a lot right now. He gets the board clear with the Faceless Corruptor anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks like he stabilized to me.
Yeah, I guess so.
The Faceless Corruptor just shuts down everything, and Language Hacker picks up Twin Slice. He needs something else more substantive.
Oh, that's something. All right. Would have been nice to draw this turn, I suppose, instead of Twin Slice, but it's another 4 damage done to face anyway. Gallant is definitely stabilized, though. Oh, yeah.
Well, Face of Feywing is hard to deal with.
Yeah.
Demon Hunter can't I-beam it.
Easy choice this turn.
Yeah, and he has Siamat on the following turn. Language Hacker picks up Satyr Overseer. But it looks like Skull Gul'dan has to come down this turn. There's no way you can justify floating them so much mana.
Yeah, for sure. What does he draw? Let's find out. I-beam, alright. Can't use it, though. Umberwing. And a Battle Fiend. Okay. Well, not exactly the cards that are going to get you back in this one. You still got 23 health remaining, but that's going to be disappearing fast. As we know what's in Gallon's hand right now. And I think this Demon Hunter has run out of steam at this point.
Yeah, it seems like that early game from the Hunter wasn't even necessarily that good. It was just more like Language Hacker's early game once more wasn't good enough. Faceless Corruptor ended up being really powerful and a huge impact. But Language Hacker can't clear this unless he commits a second slice, and that's pretty expensive.
It is. What else are you supposed to do, though, you know? You have to find some way to try to come back on the board. And he's done that a little bit now, but Dwarven Sharpshooter, less useful late in the game. But some interesting decisions for Gallon to make here. Basically, you can't really clear the board, it seems like, right? But you can at least put some stuff out there that makes them use their cards on your minions instead of on you, right? Which is kind of what you want to do as a Hunter in this case.
Yeah, I think Siamat here is fantastic. I'm actually wondering if we should go off the usual choices. A lot of times people in this position like to use Siamat for like Rush plus either like Wind Fury or Divine Shield. I'm like wondering if it's good to use it as Rush and Taunt.
Yeah, that's a great question, because you're at 17 health. Your opponent doesn't have a lot of cards, but you just never know with Demon Hunter. Kane, Sun Fury. I guess the taunt wouldn't have been very helpful after all.
Yeah, I mean, keeping Siamat healthy is important too.
Yeah.
Good sequencing by Language Hacker to make sure that Ivy doesn't end up costing 1 instead of 0.
Yep.
But yeah, the taunt was only because, you know, if Language Hacker has a weapon up, you kind of force him to attack into it.
Pretty much.
This is the last offensive from Language Hacker. This is all he has. Oh my goodness.
The Zephrys comes out at the pretty much perfect time. Yeah. There's a lot you can do with this. He's going to wait to use it, probably.
Interesting.
Didn't get the 3/5, so you can kill the Satyr Overseer with the hero power now.
Oh, I get it. So this is a 2-turn lethal setup. I was thinking about like how Zephrys can guarantee the clear here, but if Language Hacker didn't have a way to stop the Rotten-Ash Drake, would have been lethal.
Yeah, Zephrys could have given him the card he needed to finish him off. After the Alex Strauss turn is what you're thinking?
So the following turn you would have had Zephyrus plus the Stormhammer to.
Oh,
you're saying
sure,
this turn.
sure.
You're saying this turn.
No, I was saying last turn. I get it now, though. I completely like the Stormhammer just vacated my brain as a card in his hand. I see now. Yeah. Well,
I wonder.
having your 6/5 frozen is annoying. Being at 8 health is pretty annoying too.
So he has a board clear here, and I think it's worth doing. Zephyrus, if you also Shadow Madness is the first thing that comes to my mind. So you would attack this 1/1, hero power the Zane,
Right.
and play Zephyrus, and should offer you the ability to clear.
Going for the Alex Trasa instead, though, just bring himself back up to 15 health. Like Gallon really wants to end this game.
Oh my goodness!
Oh.
There's specifically one draw that can help him here. It would be a Metamorphosis.
Yeah, didn't draw it though. Got the I-beam instead. That was close though, and that's why I think Gallon is so desperate to try to end this thing, because Demon Hunter can have those explosive turns even off the top of the deck like that.
Yeah, and I guess in his mind, he would have been effectively at 7 or 8 HP either way. Because
Right.
if he heals up to 15, there's 7 on the board. But if he killed everything with Zephyrus, he would have had 8 health anyways.
Exactly.
So this was his way to set up 2-turn lethal. So Gallon found a better way to set up and threaten Language Hacker. Language Hacker now has to use his IV defensively.
At least it's a bit of healing. I mean, you take a little bit of solace in that, being back up to 18 again, but still, you're at effectively 4 health.
Yep.
And
That'll
that is
do it.
more than enough, yeah. Multiple ways to finish off Language Hacker, and Gallon's going to take this series 3-1, it looks like.
Yep. Demon Hunter got swept from Language Hacker. Not something that you see all the time, but every blue moon or so, you see Demon Hunter tend to struggle, and
Yeah.
it's been slowly descending the tier list since the dawn of Demon Hunter, right? Ashes Outland came.
Well, nerfs have a tendency
completely-
to do that, right?
Yeah, completely crushed everything, and then
Yeah.
slowly but surely, every successive patch just became a little bit weaker, and now Demon Hunter getting nerfed to the point where it seems like it's pretty regularly seen that Demon Hunter gets swept. So very unfortunate there for Language Hacker, but the good news that not only, of course, Gallon is guaranteed in playoffs, Language Hacker is in prime position for it as well, given his 4-1 start. His tiebreakers are very good.
Yeah, both of those players at the top of Group A, essentially. And so still in a good spot as far as the rest of Grandmasters is looking. But an interesting series. Just touching on what you said with Demon Hunter, it does seem like it's sort of started to stabilize as, just another class, basically, in Hearthstone, where the initial, hey, it's a new class power has kind of been tempered a little bit to where it's still definitely a good class, but it's found a little bit more equilibrium with everything else in the game.
Yeah, so Gallon takes it 3-1 and has 100% locked in his playoff spot. Although, we had known that for a little bit of time, but it's very safe to say that 5-1 should be the playoffs. That'd be absurd if he was still not
don't
here.
know how you don't make the playoffs at 5-1. That's some math that's too complex for me. Should be pretty safe there. Our next matchup, Purple versus PNC. That is going to be an exciting one because there's a